Welcome to history that's more fascinating than counting sheep. Tonight, we invite you to drift back in time to a place of marble columns, heated floors, and the curious scent of olive oil and ambition. The Roman Empire is often remembered for its grandeur, its sweeping aqueducts, shining bronze statues, and endless legions. But beneath that polished facade was a world far messier, stranger, and more human. In this quiet journey through time, we'll uncover 4 hidden corners of Roman life. You'll visit a place where people gather not just to bathe, but to gossip, argue, and sweat profusely among strangers. You'll meet an emperor whose mind unraveled while the world watched, wandered the streets of the city frozen by ash, and finally, reclining Cavudi at a dinner party where gluttony met politics. Don't worry about remembering the names, the dates, or the Latin phrases. Just let the rhythm of the past settle around you. Let the layers of dust and centuries become soft and distant. Close your eyes, or keep them half-lidded if you wish, and imagine yourself stepping quietly into the steam of history. Let us begin with the
Imagine yourself walking down a stone-paved Roman street in the mid-afternoon sun. The heat rises gently from the ground, making the air thick and wavering. You pass stalls with figs, garum fish sauce, and woolen togas hung like drapes. The chatter of vendors, the clatter of sandals, and the occasional donkey's bray fill your ears. You're headed to the local Thermae, the Roman public bathhouse. Not a quiet spa, but a humming hive of badas, voices, steam ... and politics. The bathhouse was many things, a place to cleanse, to socialize, to scheme, and it was often crowded. Imagine stone walls echoing with 100 overlapping conversations, senators murmuring about tomorrow's votes, former soldiers boasting of glories long past, young men laughing too loudly at nothing in particular. The air is heavy with the sharp scent of sweat, oil, and wet limestone. You start in the appetiterium, the changing room. There are no private lockers here. You hand your tunic to a slave, if you have one, or risk leaving it in a niche, hoping no thief is watching. Theft in bathhouses was common ... and petty. And there's something faintly vulnerable about being so exposed in a place so public. From there, you shuffle into the tepidarium, a warm room meant to ease your body into the heat. The marble is slick underfoot. The air is warm, moist, and vaguely metallic, almost like blood, but cleaner. Mosaics of sea creatures grin up from beneath your feet. You sit on a low stone bench. The walls breathe warmth. Your pores open, and then the caldarium. The hot room. It is stifling. The heat presses into your skin like a weight. There is a bronze basin of boiling water in one corner, and someone is ladling it over the stones to make more steam. Your skin is damp, your hair clings to your forehead, and everyone is glistening. It is hard to tell if the sweat on your skin is yours or part of the air itself. Some men slap oil on their limbs and scrape it off with a curved blade called a strigil. This is their version of soap. The oil mingles with sweat and grime, creating a slick residue that slides to the floor. It is ... not fragrant. Slaves move among the men, offering massages. Some use knotted fists. Others simply slap the skin in rhythmic, forceful waves. A senator in the corner is whispering to a merchant. A disgruntled poet mutters to himself, and you are starting to feel faint, but there's more. The frigidarium, the cold plunge, is next. A rectangular pool cut deep into the stone. The water is shockingly cold, still, and dark. You're expected to throw yourself in. It's a test of nerve, some say. Or perhaps a jolt to the senses after the fog of heat. You might hesitate. Many do, yet down you go. The water bites your skin, but you emerge sharper, more alert, and a little humiliated. Then the socializing begins in earnest. Some men play dice. Others argue about philosophy, property, or gladiator rankings. Many do business. It's a place of casual connection and calculated networking. If you're a foreigner or simply poor, your presence may earn you looks curious, amused, or dismissive. Behind the scenes, water is being funneled through aqueducts, heated by enormous furnaces beneath the floors. Slaves shovel wood into roaring fires, sweat pouring from their bodies even as they serve those enjoying the heat above. For them, the luxury of the bathhouse is simply labor. And though you may feel cleaner now, don't mistake this place for hygienic. The pools are rarely emptied. The floors are rarely scrubbed. Wounds fester, fungus spreads, and yet, Romans believed deeply in the health benefits of bathing. A Roman doctor might recommend daily baths to treat melancholy. But he might also advise that you bring your own sponge. Eventually, you collect your things, if they're still there. You may dress exhausted or you may stay, and try the communal latrine with its rows of open holes and shared sponges, soaked in vinegar and reused. The rhythm of Roman life was woven through places like this place is loud and pungent, crowded and chaotic. To us, they may seem unbearable. But to a Roman, this was normalcy. This was civilization. This was Rome. As you leave, squinting into the golden sun, your skin still steaming. Imagine for a moment the lives that pass through those doors every day, from emperors to beggars, poets to generals, all stripped of their robes, all human, all warm and tired just like you. Let's now step away from the steam and into the flickering mind of one of Rome's most infamous emperors. When you're ready, say continue, and we'll meet the man who dined with statues and trusted his horse more than his senators. The steam of the bathhouse fades now. Imagine it lifting like morning mist ... revealing a different kind of heat. Not one of fire or stone, but of tension, madness, and power. We now turn to a marble palace's corridors, long and echoing, its silence broken only by the soft steps of slaves and the murmur of scheming voices behind embroidered curtains. This is the Rome of Caligula, or ... as he was born, Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus. A name heavy with history, a name that once stirred hope, before it came to tremble with something else entirely. Gaius was the son of a beloved General Germanicus who was adored by both soldiers and citizens. As a toddler, he followed his father on military campaigns, dressed in a miniature uniform complete with Caligulae military boots. The soldiers affectionately called him Caligula, meaning little boots. It was a nickname that stuck. One can imagine the child bright-eyed, watching men shout orders, watching maps unfold like strange puzzles. Even then, perhaps he understood the power of attention ... and performance. But childhood did not last long. His father died under mysterious, likely political circumstances. His mother and brothers later fell victim to imperial suspicion, starved or executed by the Emperor Tiberius, who had adopted Gaius whether out of strategy or obligation. And so the boy with little boots found himself raised in a palace. An island villa, really ... under the cold, strange gaze of an aging emperor. Tiberius was a man known for paranoia, cruelty, and isolation. His court was an uneasy place, opulent, yes, but soaked with quiet dread, and young Caligula learned to survive it. He learned silence, he learned obedience, and he learned eventually how fear could become a tool. When Tiberius died in 37 CE, Caligula, now 24, ascended the throne. Rome rejoiced. Crowds wept with joy in the streets. Temples were adorned with garlands. The Senate praised him, the people adored him. He was seen as the golden heir, handsome, youthful, and carrying the memory of Germanicus in his bearing. For the first months of his reign, Caligula was generous. He granted bonuses to the army, abolished certain unfair taxes, and freed prisoners. Games were held, bread distributed, and hopes renewed. But then ... something changed. Caligula fell gravely ill. We do not know precisely what the illness was. Some speculate epilepsy, others encephalitis. For weeks, he lay bedridden. And when he rose again, the man who emerged was not the one Rome had cheered for. His stare was longer, his laugh stranger, his judgments more severe. It was said softly behind closed doors that Caligula believed he had died and returned as a god. Now we come to the story that has survived the centuries like a whispered riddle, the tale of Incitatus, the emperor's horse. Caligula loved horses, but Incitatus, his favorite, was treated as royalty. The stallion had a marble stall, an ivory manger, purple blankets and a collar of precious stones. He was guarded by soldiers at night to ensure his rest was undisturbed. It said Caligula once planned to build him a house, complete with servants. And yes, he allegedly declared his intention to make Incitatus a consul, one of the highest political positions in Rome. Was he mad? Perhaps, or perhaps he wasn't entirely. Consider the act itself. By proposing a horse for consul, Caligula may have been mocking the Senate, implying that a mute beast was as qualified as the squabbling, self-serving politicians around him. It was absurd, and yet no one laughed. Because in Caligula's Rome, laughter could be fatal. Caligula's cruelty grew increasingly elaborate. He reportedly confiscated fortunes on whim, forced nobles to run beside his chariot, and conversed with statues as though they were guests. He walked the halls of his palace dressed as various gods: Jupiter, Apollo, sometimes Venus, wearing silk gowns and golden sandals. He had a bridge built across the Bay of Baia using ships lashed together simply so he could ride across it on horseback, in defiance of a prophecy that said he had no more chance of becoming emperor than riding a horse across the sea. But even in these strange acts, there was symbolism. Caligula wasn't just mad, he performed madness. He ruled by spectacle, by confusion, by breaking expectations until no one could tell where theater ended and threat began. This too was power, and it made everyone around him very, very afraid. After 4 years of unpredictability, humiliation, and purges, a conspiracy formed. Members of the Praetorian Guard, his own elite bodyguards, decided they had seen enough. In January of the year 41, Caligula was cornered in a corridor beneath a theater. The details are lost in whispers, but it was quick and final. His body, once celebrated, lay discarded in an alley. He was 28 years old. The Senate briefly considered restoring the Republic. Instead, the Guard declared Caligula's uncle, the awkward and stammering Claudius, emperor. The empire marched on. So what are we to make of the boy in the little boots? Was he mad from the start? Or driven to it by loss, isolation, and the unbearable weight of power? Was he a cruel fool or a dark genius of performance? Even his nickname Caligula was never used to his face. He reportedly hated it. Perhaps it reminded him too much of what he used to be. In the quiet hours, it's tempting to imagine him alone in his marble halls, surrounded by silence and statues, longing for the simple approval of the crowd. Or maybe just the soft sound of hooves on stone. A horse cannot betray you after all. And in the silence of the night, that may have felt like enough. Let us now leave the palace and journey to a city where time itself was arrested, where stone and ash preserved whispers of daily life, of love, labor, and superstition. When you're ready, simply say continue, and we will walk the streets of Pompeii.
Now, let the halls of the palace fade, the rustle of silken robes, the clatter of sandals on marble, grows distant. We turn now to something stiller, quieter, frozen in time. Imagine, if you will, the soft hush of volcanic ash blanketing a city that once pulsed with voices, footsteps, and flame. Tonight, we walk through Pompeii. Pompeii was a bustling Roman town, nestled near the shimmering Bay of Naples. Its streets hummed with daily life vendors, hawking olives and lentils, artisans hammering bronze, bakers tending round loaves in brick ovens. The scent of yeast and olive oil drifted through narrow alleyways. The stone streets bore the worn grooves of countless carts. Children played games with pebbles. Dogs slept in doorways. Life unfolded in rhythms so familiar, no one thought they would ever stop. But behind it all, looming gently, like a drowsy giant, was Mount Vesuvius. Its slopes were green, its summit quiet. No one alive remembered it erupting. And so, the people did not fear it. When Vesuvius erupted in the year 79 CE, it did not begin with fire, but with tremors. The earth shifted underfoot. Chickens refused to eat. Dogs barked. Wells went dry. Then, a sound like thunder. A crack in the sky, and the mountain split from its summit. A column of smoke rose dark and towering, shaped like a pine tree. According to Pliny the Younger, who watched from across the bay, ash rained down like dry snow. People ran, some stayed, some believed it would pass, but it did not pass. A cascade of pumice, gas, and ash buried the city first gently, then violently, and in doing so, it preserved Pompeii like a dream caught in glass. Today, you can walk the streets of Pompeii, not in imagination, but in reality. And yet, walking there is like walking through someone else's memory. The city is silent. No birds sing. Only the soft sound of your own footsteps echoes between the empty walls. Shops still stand. Counters still curve. Even graffiti remains scratched hurriedly into stone walls centuries ago. One reads, Celadus, the Thracian makes all the girls sigh. Another, I've had many women eyes. Do not change. In a modest home, you see a painted fresco Venus reclining on a seashell, attended by cupids. Her smile is serene. The colors still soft and rosy. In another, a mosaic of a barking dog warns Cave Canaan, beware of the dog, but the dog is long gone. The people are long gone, and yet, they are here. The people of Pompeii were deeply spiritual. Their world was one of signs and omens of household gods and foreign deities. In kitchens, small shrines called Lararia stood, painted with protective spirits and ancestors. Tiny statues of fertility gods sat beside painted serpent symbols of renewal, health, and domestic peace. They believed in balance, in pleasing to God, in reading signs in the flights of birds or the patterns of spilled wine. And sometimes, they were afraid. A recently unearthed wall painting shows a man with wings, 4 ears, and a whip in his hand. Possibly a representation of fear itself. In the brothels, crude carvings above doors promised pleasure. But the walls also bore prayers, and please us was not a culture without darkness. But it was not one obsessed with it either. It simply coexisted. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Pompeii are the plaster casts, hollow spaces where bodies once lay, filled by ash, then carefully poured with plaster centuries later. You see a child curled beneath a step, a man resting on his elbow, as if waiting for the tremor to pass. A woman lying face down, her jewelry still at her neck. They are not gory. They are quiet. They speak not of terror, but of final moments frozen in place, human shapes held gently by time. We do not know their names, but we know how they slept. We know how they ran, how they reached for each other. And that, is something powerful. Pompeii also reveals how advanced and yet how ordinary Roman life could be. There were bakeries with millstones for grinding flour. Carbonized loaves have been recovered drowned, marked for slicing, some even bearing the names of bakeries stamped into them. There were fast food stalls, thermopolia with jars built into counters to serve hot stew or wine. Some had painted menus on the wall, a rooster, a bowl, a goblet. There were aqueduct-fed fountains and intersections. Public latrines with stone benches and clever drainage systems. A multi-story apartment buildings insulated with upper floors long since crumbled. This was not a primitive people. They lived with complexity, convenience, and fragility. And then the eruption. A single day, perhaps two. And it was over. Pompeii was forgotten, buried, hidden, or whispered of in fragments. It would not be uncovered for nearly 1,700 years. When it was rediscovered in the 18th century, it became a marvel, an open window into antiquity, but also a mirror. Because in the faces of those statues, the curl of a painted vine, the ashes of an oven, we glimpsed ourselves. We too believe in comfort, in love, in routine, in permanence, but all things fade. All things are dust eventually. Let us now step gently away from Pompeii's stone lanes. The sun hangs low, the air is still. You've seen a day forever pause. You've heard footsteps that will never sound again. As we leave, take one last look at the sleeping city beneath the mountain. And now, we turn to another Rome one behind closed doors, where senators lounge in silk, recline on couches, and raise goblets of wine as daggers flicker behind half smiles. When you're ready, say continue, and we'll attend a Roman banquet not as guests of honor, but quiet observers in the candlelight.
The ash settles behind us. Pompeii returns to silence. And we find ourselves once again in the heart of Rome, not on the streets this time, but behind doors thick with gold leaf and secrecy. It is evening. The lamps have been lit. You are about to witness a banquet held by one of the Roman elite, a senator, a man of influence, a man who smiles with one corner of his mouth and speaks carefully, always carefully. Tonight is not just about food, it is about power, and no one leaves a Roman banquet untouched by it. The domus, the Roman mansion, is a symbol of wealth and refinement. Its walls are painted with lush scenes, mythological hunts, floating cherubs, garlands of fruit and ivy. The floors are cool mosaic, their tiny tesserae clicking under the leather solace of arriving guests. As you enter, a slave sprinkles your hands with perfumed water. Another offers a small towel. A third murmurs your name to the host, who greets you with a nod, but not too much warmth. This is politics, not friendship. The atrium is wide, its center open to the sky. Rainwater collects in a shallow basin below the stars. The light is flickering lamplight, torchlight, the gentle gleam of polished bronze. Shadows stretch long across the walls. You are led into the triclinium, the dining room. Here, 3 couches form a U-shape around a low table. You do not sit. You recline. Propped on cushions, leaning on one elbow, your feet tucked behind you. This is how Romans of stature dine, not upright and rushed, but lounging, deliberate, always watching. The host takes the most prestigious spot. You are placed according to rank, favor, and current alliances. The feast begins. Roman banquets were long affairs meant not only to satisfy hunger, but to perform generosity, taste, and power. The meal unfolds in courses, gestatio the appetizers. You may be served eggs drizzled with garum fermented fish sauce that Romans adored. There might be olives stuffed with anchovies, small sausages spiced with cumin, or dates wrapped in bacon-like strips of salted pork. Then comes la prima mensa, the main course. Whole roast birds, perhaps peacock or guinea hen, their feathers replaced after cooking, purely for show. A boar garnished with fruits, its mouth stuffed with sausages. A dish of dormice, yes, the rodent stuffed with nuts and honey. The flavors are bold. Romans prized contrast, sweet with salty, soft with crunchy. A dish might include fish, figs, and vinegar all in one. And finally, the secunda mensa desserts, honey cakes, baked pears with wine reduction, candied fruits. And always, wine poured often, sometimes diluted, sometimes not. There are no forks. You eat with your fingers. A slave stands by to rinse them between bites. Napkins are cloths draped across your chest, more for wiping than protecting. Spills are expected, loud chewing is not frowned upon. And vomiting between courses in the vomitorium is a myth, but overindulgence was not. But this is not a dinner party, not as we know it. Every glance, every word, every laugh calculated. Discussions range from literature to law, from military exploits to carefully worded critiques of rival senators. Sometimes poetry is read. Sometimes a singer performs. Sometimes just silence as guests measure one another through sips of wine. There is a rhythm to it, a performance. And beneath it all tension, because in Rome, banquets were dangerous places. It is whispered never openly that some men never left these dining rooms. Poison was the weapon of choice among Rome's elite, easy to administer, difficult to trace, and often mistaken for indigestion. The hostess may smile as she refills your goblet. The servant may press your wine cup too long to his lips before offering it. The Emperor Claudius, it is said, was killed this wayfed dish of mushrooms, which his wife Agrippina called the food of the gods. He died quietly in his own palace, his breath growing faint beneath a silken cover. Was it the mushrooms? Or was it simply time? In Rome, those questions often remained unanswered, and so every banquet carried with it an undercurrent of unease. A flicker in the eye, a hesitation before the first bite. The men wear togas elaborately folded, their colors and borders revealing rank and office. The women, those allowed to attend, wear flowing stolas, often in soft colors, pinned with intricate brooches. Their hair is curled, their sandals laced, but the real costume ... is control. To display emotion here is to display weakness. To eat too greedily, to speak too freely, to laugh too loudly, these are noted, remembered, perhaps discussed later. Behind shutters, slaves move constantly, pouring, fetching, clearing. They are silent, trained, often invisible. But they hear everything, and sometimes they carry messages from one end of the room to the other, delivered with a glance or a change in serving order. The host may smile at you, but what he truly thinks, what he truly wants, may not be known until the morning, or the Senate floor. As the meal winds down, the air grows thicker, not just with the smell of roasted meats and honeyed wine, but with weariness. Guests begin to recline more deeply. Some close their eyes, pretending to listen. Others murmur half-hearted toasts. The lamps burn low, and the whispers at last fall quiet. Outside, the night wind brushes against the fig trees. Inside, wine-stained fingers rest loosely on goblets, and breath slows to the rhythm of digestion and sleep. The senator smiles. He has made his offerings to the gods, to his allies, to power itself. Tomorrow, the games begin again, but tonight there is only silence. The flicker of dying flame, the rustle of robes, and the uneasy rest of men who have eaten too much and trusted too little. You are no longer in the banquet hall, no longer surrounded by whispering senators and peacocks on platters. Rome begins to fade, its heat, its voices, its marble and fire, and as it recedes, you return to yourself softly, slowly, no longer reclining on velvet cushions, but resting beneath your own quiet ceiling, your breath steady and calm. The empire was vast, its shadows long, its stories complex, but here, now, there is only stillness and sleep. You may let it all go. The ash, the laughter, the hoofbeats, the steam. Sleep well, traveler, and thank you for wandering with us through boring history.